Hey everyone, it's Kelly here. So today we're going to try to recreate this beautiful purple flower. Now, this is one that I did with a couple other friends of mine that are artists. We were doing live happy hours for 15 minutes. This is a 15-minute flower, and we forgot to hit the record button. So I'm going to recreate it for you here. And for any of my patrons, the full video is going to be in our group. And if you're not a patron and want to help support my channel, sign up for my tier. You get one full tutorial every month. I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons, Pat, Scott, Diane, Ra, Kathy, Jennifer, Deb, Felicia, Mary, Marcella, Larry, and Beth. Thank you so much for being my first patrons. I just started in my Patreon group. So I'm going to be using this brush. This is actually an antique brush that I picked up many, many years ago. I think this is probably in the 70s. It is a Sable Kolinsky brush. And I should say that I did not pick it up in the 70s. It was made in the 70s. I picked it up in the 2000s, early 2000s. I'm going to start out with a little bit of purple. I can't remember exactly how I did this one, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit, but I thought I was using the Daniel Smith Moon Glow when I first started this one. I was recreating it because that's what I used in the one on the left, but I forgot that I had put some violet in here, so I had the wrong one. So I'm mixing up a little bit of the violet along now with the Daniel Smith Moon Glow, which has a beautiful granulation to it, and it's the only color I have of Daniel Smith. So Daniel Smith, if you want to send me some Daniel Smith watercolors, I would love to play with them a little bit more because I really, really, really like the color. I'm popping in some more of that color. I've got a little bit of the permanent rose in here as well. I just wanted to lighten up, try a few things, right? Because I'm doing this for the second time. It's not going to always look exactly the same. It's really hard to get a painting looking exactly the same when you're trying to recreate it. So, and plus I can't remember exactly what I did because I really wasn't paying attention because it's a time crunch, right? So back and forth a little bit, trying to get that shape in there. Kind of a round blob, basically, is what I'm starting with. And this is all wet into wet. So I am trying to recreate this in that same 15 minutes. If you want to check out the videos, I am going to post them here from the group. This is from our happy hour group with Kimberly, Dean, and Beth Cluth, who are fabulous alcohol ink artists. If you haven't checked them out, I'll leave their link to their YouTube channels down below. They're so much fun. So they're doing theirs in alcohol ink, and I'm working in watercolor. So I popped in a couple of leaves to try to match them. Now the other leaves are really, really loose, and I love the texture of the watercolor cold pressed paper. This is the arches on the left, or arches, or arch, or however you say it. And I'm using the Strathmore watercolor cards because they're a little bit softer. The texture's not quite as rough as the more expensive paper. So I'm, again, trying to recreate this on a little bit less expensive paper just to see if I could get that same look. So I'm splattering a little bit of color here. I realize I didn't wait long enough. Again, I'm trying to be in a hurry. But if I'd waited long enough, that wouldn't have spread out quite as much. So I'm going to dry it, and I'm going to go back in and do a little bit more splatter. So it kind of did do a little bit of muddiness in here, but we've got some of that purple in the other one too that just kind of bled a little bit because it was wet and I was trying to work fast. Because I didn't tape it down, and again, I kind of went off on a whim just to see if I could recreate this one, my paper started buckling. So I'm just taping it down on the corners here just so that I can continue. Now we're going to go into a few more details. So I'm just, again, trying to shape up the blob a little bit. And I'm still using the violet and the moon glow. I'm trying to get a little bit darker now because you can see it's quite dark in here. And then I'm going to use a little bit of gouache as well, just because I had it so dark that I needed to lighten it up. And I used the white gouache in the one on the left as well. Now, the thing I realized is I should have put the gouache in now while that purple was still wet. Again, because I was working so quickly the last time. And I'm not timing myself this time, but I do know I want to keep it short, try to keep it close to that 15 minutes. But you're seeing a little sped up version here a little bit. But I wanted to add that white gouache while it was still wet because it would bloom a little bit better, but it still works out. So I'm going in again with a little bit darker green on this one because I had, it kind of muddied a little bit, too much purple in there. And you can see where I just don't get that nice skip that I did with the one on the left, that more dry brush texture, because that paper has so much more texture. Gonna let those leaves dry, and I attempted to put some gouache in here, and it's pretty dry. That purple's pretty dry underneath. So you can see how bold that white is and versus the one on the left where it just kind of bled a little bit more. That's okay. I had a little bit of water in here, so we'll see if we can, once it dries, it gets a little bit lighter. So I'm doing a little splattering again to cover up some of the splatters I had done before that didn't show up quite as well. I'm going to try to see if I can put a little center in here, a couple little dots without switching my brush to that real small one yet. I do need to switch my brush because I do have some fine lines in there. And then we have a couple little dots of some yellow in the center. I'm not sure what kind of flower this is. Maybe a poppy? I'm not really sure. Do they have poppies that are like a purple? It might have been a fake flower. I'm trying to think back now at the reference photo. We got the reference photo from unsplash.com. All right, so I dug up the reference photo. I think this is a fake flower. Look at that. That's not real, is it? It's still pretty though. All right, so I am almost done here. I think I'm just gonna grab a number 1 Princeton script brush just to do a few final details on this one. And so I lost my script brush. You can see I'm like digging through. These are all my brushes, you guys. That's not bad, right? But that is just my watercolor brushes. So I did finally find it. I do have my oil brushes and my alcohol ink brushes in the closet. You don't want to see those. There's another couple of big piles. But you got to have the brushes, right? Speaking of brushes, I do want to share with you guys that I've been using these 3 brushes since January, since I went to North Carolina, and I love them. So if you don't have them, these are the 3 that I've got. I got a 1.5-inch flat wash, a 1/4-inch dagger brush, and my 1 script. And these have now become my favorite brushes. And I'm not normally a brush snob, but I really like those 3. I mean, it's like you could do almost everything with it, other than you do need a nice round brush as well. And then, squirrel hair brushes and, fan brush and, but when I started teaching watercolor classes, I used 2 brushes for the first 5 years. So if you're new to watercolor, don't go out and buy all that stuff. Just get yourself like a round brush or an oval wash brush, like a 1/2 inch or a 3/4, and just get yourself a fine little detail brush, like a number 1 script like that one. I mean, really, you don't need much more than that when you're first starting out. And then you can get real creative with the other stuff later on. So I went ahead and grabbed my 1-inch or my number 1 script brush, and I just did a few little lines there with my white gouache, some more splattering. And I think I'm just going to add just a touch in that green. I'm starting to get a little bit more detailed, which I didn't want to do, but because I didn't have a timer, that's what happened. So if you are trying these happy hour 15 minutes, set yourself a timer. Start that clock once you get your materials and your supplies down, and then give yourself 15 minutes to do a painting, because sometimes when you're just doing something really quick, you learn so much more about yourself and how maybe you tend to overwork stuff, which is me. I tend to overwork stuff a lot, and it just loosens you right up. So I did do a little bit more details in this one than I did in the other one. I don't think that. Well, you tell me. Leave me a note down below or a comment down below. Which one do you like best? Now remember, the one on the left is on Arches, and these are both basically about 15 minutes. I did cut some of it out of here. Really was close when I did the recording and I looked back at it. So let me know, do you like this one better, or do you like the one on the right better? Left or right? Would love to know what you guys thought. So as always, if you liked the video, please make sure to click that like button down below. And if you want to do more flowers, check out my April 7-day flower challenge. Super fun. Look in the description box below and I will have the link for the playlist of all 7 of these flowers. And if you do decide to paint them, I would love to see them. So feel free to tag me on Instagram or on Facebook. Just use the hashtag flower challenge KC, and I will make sure to look for it. All right. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you in the next one. Have a great week.